Samsung Electronics is out with a lighter, thinner and wider special edition of its foldable smartphone series, while a Korean reality show involving chefs continue to create significant ripple effects. All this coming up on today's edition of Press Perspective. Hello and welcome to Friday's edition of Press Perspective for October 25th here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we touch upon a number of Korean items, if you will, including a smartphone and a survival show that have been building much buzz online. For this, I have Celio Fioretti, a correspondent for French daily Le Croix. Celio, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
I also have Steven Borowiec with Japanese news magazine Nikkei Asia. Steven, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here, thanks.
Right, Celio, let's begin with the international media coverage that is in response to Samsung's Galaxy Fold Z Special Edition.
Yeah, exactly. Samsung has officially launched today the Galaxy Z Fold 6 Special Edition, in South Korea with a price tag of around 2,700,000 won, which is approximately $2,000. The news has come to quite a surprise to the international media with, I have to say, quite good titles and good reviews, calling it a revolution sometimes. What surprised the most are its camera and its thickness. The latest foldable phone from Samsung makes a couple of key upgrades in the design and the camera departments. First, Samsung has shaved off 1.5 millimeters of thickness compared to the previous edition, the Galaxy Z Fold 6. Another notable change is the color chemistry. Now it's coming only in a black color with a cool eye-catching design on the back with lines forming a pattern running across it. The second noteworthy change on the Galaxy Z Fold Special Edition is the new camera sensor. Samsung has treated to a 200 megapixel primary camera at the back, upping the previous one from a 50 megapixel camera for all its mainstream foldable phones. The latest from Samsung also will go on sale starting November, maybe in the rest of the world, but it has not been confirmed yet. So the rest of the world, we have to wait until the Korean get their hand on it.
Right, I see. And Steven, generally speaking, how do Samsung smartphones compare to those of its Chinese rivals, would you say?
I'd say they contrast in some interesting ways. With Xiaomi, both companies, from what I've read, are quite similar when it comes to their high-end phones. Like they have, in terms of like the hardware and the software elements, they both use Android operating systems, but Samsung has something of a leg up when it comes to its updating. It's able to provide like a more prolonged or more frequent updates. But I think that what kind of starts to set them apart is that Samsung is more firmly positioning itself in the premium market, whereas Xiaomi has carved out a space, particularly in Europe, from a kind of value for money proposition, offering a wider range of more attractive kind of mid-level or entry-level phones, whereas that seems to be a market that Samsung is just kind of less interested in. They're more interested in competing really at the leading edge of the market with Apple. I guess it also depends on the markets. I mean, like I said, Xiaomi has a pretty strong leg up in Europe, but in the Korean market, I mean, Samsung is very much ahead. Samsung has like a very strong brand value here, and the reality is that like the South Korean public, I think, is not crazy about the idea of Chinese electronics. They kind of think that they are maybe not as high quality as their Korean competitors, but so I'd say when it comes to the way that Samsung contrasts with Chinese rivals, there's a technological element. They're similar in some ways, but it seems to me like it's more of a, when you want to talk about where they diverge and where they differ, that's more of a business story. There's some interesting differences in how they market themselves and the kind of market segments that they're interested in pursuing.
Right. Celio, Steven also mentioned Apple and iPhone 17. It's widely expected to hit the markets in the autumn of 2025. Do Samsung's devices hold an edge over those of Apple? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's the usual question for every release from Apple or Samsung, the battle of the two giants. Which one is the best? Well, I'm not an expert on that. I have the budget for only one phone, and it's largely enough for my use of it. However, I've done my research, and I can give you some insight on the matter. Samsung has a lot more phones on offering than Apple, and with that, Samsung can cover a wider range of budget, even though, as Steven said, now they're shifting more to a high-end quality and budget. But for example, the Galaxy A offers an affordable range for any type of budget, and it won't make you feel like you made a compromise on the quality. Samsung managed to maintain a good quality with a reasonable price for a lot of its model. In some countries, just for under $200, so it's really affordable. Now on the tech detail for the most tech-savvy of us, the takeaway is that iPhone tends to offer better CPU performance, and Samsung tends to provide better GPU performance. So if you're going to play a lot of 3D games, for example, Samsung is the best choice. If you want to switch between a wide range of application, maybe for work, maybe iPhone is better, but the difference is ever so slightly that in your daily use, the difference is not that big for you. Now on camera, which we all use every day, since only pro and hobbyists really buy a camera nowadays, on that Samsung has been on the top for many years now and is recognized as the best camera on the market. So with the new phone, it's keeping its head in the race. For the most part, I guess Samsung Galaxy's phones are better camera, better battery life and display, but Apple has a good environment. If you stay within Apple, if you buy also a Mac or this kind of thing, that has a good environment that you can create. So it's depending on what you want to do with your phone in the end.
Right. Steven, let's move away now from smartphones to a South Korean survival show on Netflix that has been making quite a bit of headlines. I'm talking about the Culinary Class Wars, and for the sake of those who have yet to watch it, could you start off by giving us a brief synopsis of the show itself and your thoughts regarding its broader popularity?
Well, it's a competitive cooking show that puts together, I think it's a total of 100 chefs, and they're divided into black spoons and white spoons. And the characteristic that divides them is that these are like very well-known, older, like well-established chefs, and they're going against newer, kind of less experienced, more up-and-coming chefs. And I think there's a few reasons why it's struck a chord with viewers, both in Korea and overseas. I think in Korea, what's kind of interesting about it is that it puts to test a very fundamental precept of Korean society of like deference to elders, and that like with age, with experience comes expertise, and it's having like younger guys competing against older guys and seeing, well, maybe these younger guys have some kind of advantage, or maybe just raw skill can kind of rise to the top, and there will be chefs who have, particularly creative or particularly technically sound approaches that can lead them to triumph. I also think this show, like, what's the reason that it's appealing to a lot of people is it's not just like the technical elements of cooking, but there's a strong kind of narrative element to it. A lot of these chefs, I mean, I worked in restaurants when I was young, and I said, like, being a chef is a path to a very interesting life. It's very challenging. It requires some fierce dedication. It requires a lot of sacrifice. Chefs work very long hours. They work under very intense conditions. And the way that this show like brings the viewer into a world that they don't really normally see, like the high pressure, hot, stuffy, intense world of professional cooking, is just a very can make for very compelling viewing. And so I think that this show really manages to fuse a number of like narrative and cinematic elements in some pretty effective ways. And it's all about food, which everybody loves.
Right, for sure. Celio, France itself is also quite renowned for its own culinary treasure trove. How did you like the show, Culinary Class Wars?
I liked it a lot, yeah. It was quite interesting for me to watch a Korean show about cuisine, discovering the big names of Korean fine dining, as well as the ingredients. Some I never tried, some I I didn't even know about it. Now I want to find a good restaurant with them. But as you said, France is known for its gastronomy, and we have plenty of cooking show in France too. It's interesting for me to see how Korea approaches this topic. One comment that really struck with me was made by the jury, Baek Jong-won. He often thought about how the dish will appeal to the foreign clients, foreign customer, in the sense that how can we keep traditional Korean food but make it with a twist for foreign taste in the way that Korean cuisine now is trying to export itself to the world. I think it really shows that the idea of Korean cuisine now to be like established and recognized outside of Korea. So also it's a way for to show to the tourists it's not only barbecue and bibimbap. There's a lot, very much diverse world to explore in terms of Korean cuisine. About the show itself, if I have to make just one negative comment about the show, and it comes with the narrative that Steven talked just before. For me, it's just my personal point of view. I would like to dive more into the cooking process, see how they cut, how they grill the fish, how they make the sauce. Maybe I can try to do it at home, also try to take some inspiration from them, but that's just a minor detail. Overall, the show was really, really nice. And the jury was also very completing themselves very well with different approach to what is a good dish, what is good fine dining. So I recommend everyone to watch it.
Right, and speaking of recommendations, Steven, some are saying that the interest in this particular show may serve to boost tourism here into Korea, especially among foodies across the world. That being said, what do you believe are the merits of Korea as a destination for foodies, and what dishes do you care to recommend to those coming into Korea just for its taste, like literally?
Okay, well, I would say Korea as a destination for foodies, for travel generally, I would say one thing Korea has going for it is just the variety of options and the fact that you can walk down any street in Korea and there's just like a whole bunch of different things that are just kind of, in some cases, literally yelling out to you like, hey, come eat here. And a wide variety of flavors, and food in Korea I think is, in terms of value for money, I was just recently in my hometown of Toronto, and I can say that what I was paying at restaurants there was sometimes like not commensurate with the quality that I was getting. I do feel like when you go out in Korea you can spend a reasonable amount of money and get a really good meal. You can go to a mid-range kind of barbecue place and get very decent food for a very decent price. But if you want to, as Celio alluded, if you want to get past the barbecues and the bibimbaps, I would say my personal favorite eating experience in Korea, I like nothing better than being in the shigol, in the countryside, sitting outside and having sambap. I love when you get the whole spread of like the marinated meat, and there's the doenjang-jjigae, and they give you a whole bunch of really nice fresh green lettuces and other kinds of wraps, and you can make your own bite-sized wraps, and you can put rice in them if you want. You got the what is it called in English? The soybean paste, doenjang, and you can add kimchi for some kick. I mean, other than that, I love all things red in Korea. I love yukgaejang, the spiciness and the tanginess, and then the savoriness of the beef. I love.
Was it an acquired taste for you, or did you like yukgaejang from the start?
Yukgaejang, I think I didn't discover until fairly like after I'd been here for a while. Kimchi was definitely an acquired taste. I didn't like kimchi. The fermentedness of kimchi kind of put me off when I first tried it, but I came to love it like any long-term expat must. Last recommendation I'll make, I love dakbokkeumtang. I think it's the like unsung hero of Korean cuisine, especially when you get the potatoes that have really like absorbed all the sauce, and you've got carrots and you've got onions, and when the sauce is done well, when it's not too much gochugaru, and it's got the long simmered flavor, it's something very special.
Right. Celio, the popularity of the show itself, though, it has also led to a number of negative consequences. Tell us a bit about them. And do you believe this phenomenon, if I may, is an inevitable part of the popularity?
I would say indeed that's the backdrop of popularity. After the 12th episode, the winner, but also the other chefs I've seen their reservation skyrockets. Let's take the example of the winner. I will try maybe not to spoil it for the audience if they haven't seen it, so I will try not to mention the person directly. For his restaurant, the app to book a table reportedly crashed shortly after reservations were opened for the restaurant in Yongsan district. The overwhelming surge in traffic led the app to crash for some 20 minutes, so some people could not catch a table at all. And when it was restored, reservations for the entire month of October were already fully booked. Reservations for November have not yet to open, so we'll see. Maybe try to adapt to a different way to book a table, so make sure everyone can get his chance to eat this delicious food. KN News, a news outlet in Korea, reported that around 100,000 people are on the waitlist for that specific restaurant. So you can imagine how
So this is the restaurant of the person who won the show.
Exactly, the winner. So this boom in restaurant popularity also led some people to make some money out of it and to scalp, basically. In another Instagram story from the owner of the restaurant, he posted a screenshot of a reservation that was offered to sell on a reselling platform online for around 700,000 won. That's crazy. And so he obviously warned against such activity, saying like if he can find the person at the origin of this attempt to sell, he will blacklist them for the restaurant. The show has been a runaway hit for Netflix, topping the streaming platforms' global list of most watched non-English series for 3 consecutive weeks since its release in September 17. Aside from this owner that we talked about in Yongsan, other chefs also had known skyrocket popularity. 65,000 people also rushed to another really popular contestant of the show for Chinese cuisine, Doryang, which opened recently.
Right. Meanwhile, Steven, the global appetite for Korea's instant noodles, ramen, has been soaring in recent times. How do you explain this reality? And also, Steven, do you have your own hacks perhaps for ramen?
I haven't eaten ramen in years, but I went through this phase some years ago where like every time I came home late at night, I would eat ramen before bed. Don't ask me why. I thought that was a good idea, but I would get a little bit creative with it. I would slice some green onions, or I would put an egg in it, or I would put kimchi in it, and I felt like I was, I don't know, I guess being creative. But I got out of the habit when I figured out just how much sodium the stuff has in it, and I thought, oh, I'm getting older, let me not eat this stuff anymore. I mean, I still respect the hallowed position that ramen has in Korean nightlife as like something that you eat when you get home, and maybe it makes you feel a little bit better the next day. Why it's so popular, I can only speculate because I don't have market data on this or anything, but I'd say there's probably a multifaceted explanation. I think probably some of it is just awareness. I mean, so many more people just know about Korea, know about Korean food than did 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. And Korean companies probably have made a lot of efforts to like broaden their distribution and just be present in more places and available on more platforms for purchase. But I mean, I also wonder, it probably just has a lot to do with, I'd say probably the biggest thing is just like the inexpensive nature of it and the convenience of it. Just that like you can keep this thing and all you need is hot water and you can eat it at any time in almost any place. It's very versatile. It's like Korea. In any kind of adverse conditions, it finds a way to get the job done. So it's a kind of a good representative for the country, I think.
Right. Celio, what are your prospects regarding the popularity of K-food and contents going forward?
I think that's a matter that even the government really is working on these days a lot. Actually, even just today, the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agriculture, had a meeting to talk about how can we better export our culinary skills and just the food culture, the Korean food culture outside of it. So it's really something that they want to integrate as part of the Hallyu, the Korean wave. we exported music, movies, now it's time for food also. I can tell, just for my example, in Paris, in the last maybe 5 years, the number of Korean restaurants in Paris more than doubled. Now it's getting everywhere, and everybody wants to try Korean food. Tteokbokki, barbecue, bibimbap, that's the most classic one, but some Korean families try to really show their home food and the traditional food from their region. I think that's really, in the show, you can see it also. They try to appeal to foreign taste. They try to make it interesting to make other people also discover. That's what was the big hit also for this show, Culinary Class Wars, because in the US, in Europe, everybody watched it. Everybody could know the big names of the Korean fine dining, and maybe when they come to Korea, they can try to go to these restaurants too, and they have ideas of other food to eat and to try and to discover, maybe give them some ideas at home to also go to the Korean restaurant, local Korean restaurant in France or anywhere else. I think it's going quite well regardless of the prospect for exporting. I think we will see a lot of movement from the government in the coming months, maybe years, about that, to really have a national strategy, if we have to speak in really like cold terms about this, to really make Korean food known and recognized abroad.
Right, and while the government makes those efforts, Steven, on your part, what do you propose to maintain this positive momentum for Hallyu?
Well, the idea of a national strategy is intriguing, and the Korean government has customarily played an active role in encouraging and in supporting cultural industries. I would just say that moving ahead, I would just want to keep in mind that, like, I think the things about Korean society that appeal to outsiders are not necessarily things that were created with an outside audience in mind. So, like, certain things about Korea, like the reason that they appeal to outsiders, that they're intriguing, is that they're different, they're unique, they speak to, you know, very much to like the unique Korean experience, and to people who aren't familiar with Korea, it comes across as quite fresh. You know, Hangang just won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and like her book, The Vegetarian, is like a very, very like Korean story. It's just presented in a way that's powerful, and that in a, you know, a skilled translation, it appeals to outsiders. You know, go all the way back to Gangnam Style. Like, Gangnam Style is a very like high context song about like a particular guy who lives in a particular, or who spends time in a particular part of Seoul, but like to no one's expectation, it resonated with audiences around the world. Parasite is the same thing. So if I was to advise policymakers, I would say, give the young, the creative, the insightful people room and support to explore things on their own, to develop things on their own. You know, like find young filmmakers and young musicians and young fashion designers, and provide them with an infrastructure, provide them with support, and then kind of stay out of their way and let their own creative vision flourish. Because I think that is what is ultimately going to turn Korea, maintain Korea's cultural momentum and keep Hallyu relevant. I mean, you don't want culture to be a kind of top-down thing where like some like government bureaucrat like goes into, you know, the hip neighborhood and says like, okay, kids, like, you know, here's how we're going to present your stuff to the world. You want those high-ranking people in government to say, okay, here is the room and here is the support for you to do what you want to do, and then you follow your vision and you present it to the world. That's the track record that Korea has of success. I think that's the formula, and I'd say keep going in that, with that approach in mind.
Right, let innovation take its course then. All right, Steven, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And Celio, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends this week's editions of Press Perspective. Do have a great weekend and see you same time next Monday.